Guys, welcome back to Biology with Inshra. So for this video here, in this episode of the biology series, we are going to be starting off with our new chapter, which is on AS levels 9700, and that particular chapter is our second chapter, known by the name as biological molecules. It's a very big chapter, and there's some things that are still left out, like for instance microscopy from chapter 1 of AS level, and then more certain things from O levels in IGCSE, but they'll keep on coming, so they're under work and they're still on the way and they'll be out in no time, right? Okay, so let us start with biological molecules. And before I start, there's some chemistry involved in here, but if you guys have not taken chemistry, or if you're weak in chemistry, and when I say chemistry, what I mean is that organic chemistry. So if you're weak, that's not a problem. I'm going to cover the basics. I'm going to tell you from scratch about chemistry and the stuff that you should know, and well, it's not pure chemistry, but then again, there is some chemistry involved here. And if you're from O levels and IGCSE, this might be a bit different. In fact, it's entirely different. There's so many new things here that even when I studied it after having done my O levels, it was completely new to me, but it's easy, and I'm just gonna go through the main points and then we're gonna get through this together. Now, without further ado, let us get started. Okay, so when we talk about biological molecules, this chapter is about your biological molecules. Okay, so actually there's certain molecules that are involved in your metabolism, right? For example, the food you eat are composed of your biological molecules, right? Not necessarily food. Maybe, for instance, there's a biological molecule called cellulose. Now, that particular element is actually found in the cell wall of your plants, right? So not maybe in your food. We're gonna discuss them in every bit of the way, okay? But before we do that, if you read your syllabus content, you guys need to know the definitions of certain words, and as well as know their meaning and what they are. So I'm gonna explain them first, and while doing past paper question videos, we're gonna see the format of the definition, but the ones that are here right in front of your screen are optimum, perfect, and good to go, so don't worry about that. Okay, so let's start with the definition, with the word macromolecules. Macromolecules are giant molecules. That's it, as simple as that. No need to get into more detail, you'd be wasting your time. Stick with the syllabus and also stick with what is required. Like, it's not necessary that you get into so much detail of one simple word. If it's required, I will tell you. Monomers. Now, this is where a little detail is required now. Monomers are basically simple units, or units that are simple and same. And when many units, like several of these combine together, they form a polymer. When several of these join together in a chain. Let me demonstrate what I mean by this. I'm going to be quick because this is easy and we have a lot of things to cover. This is not that hard. For example, when I say monomers, they're simple units, right? When I say simple units, let's consider this circle as a unit, and there are many of these. When many of these join together with a relevant bond, this line here is a bond, so they form a long chain, and this long chain is your polymer. As simple as that. So a polymer is a long chain made from many simple units called monomers that are combined together. Now, this full thing here is a polymer. I've also drawn it for you, but then I have also shown it here. This full thing here is a polymer, and this one individual thing is a monomer, right? This individual circle that you can see here, first monomer, second monomer, third monomer, fourth monomer, and fifth. There are 5 monomers here forming a long chain of polymer, okay? Now, this is a reaction here. So before we understand what this is, we need to understand there are 2 types of reactions. They're actually in the next slide, but I need to tell about those 2 reactions here, or else you won't understand this. So there is the first type of reaction is called a condensation reaction. In a condensation reaction, when 2 simple molecules combine together, they form a complex molecule. While the 2 simple molecules combine together, a water molecule is removed. That is condensation, and the opposite of that is hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is when a complex molecule is broken down to simpler molecules, and basically when water is added to break that complex molecule, water is added, not removed. Now I'll explain that again in the next slide, but for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of this equation, I have explained it. Now, so when I said earlier that monomers combine together to form a polymer. So when two monomers combine together, they combine together via a condensation reaction. Two simple molecules combining together to form a complex molecule, right? So water molecule is removed when these two simple molecules combine together, right? So you can see here that this is a polymer basically. I'm just going to get a pen and show it. It'll be much better here. This particular thing here is a polymer made from monomer number 1 and monomer number 2. They both are combined with the relevant bond here that you can see here. This is basically glycosidic bond. I'll explain that when we study carbohydrates, which is going to come up ahead now. So basically, you can see here that let's look at this particular area first. Okay, let's look at this area first. This is our main concern. So these are two simple molecules combining together. While combining, water is removed, and you can see here H2O is your water, right? I'm sure everyone knows that. You don't need to study chemistry to know that. H2O means water. So basically water is removed. Let's put a minus sign to show that, forming the polymer. And if you want to break this down back into its monomers, you add the water to get the H2O to make it back into the polymers. Monomers. So these are two opposite things to understand. Okay, so now you can see here the definitions of the two reactions have been written down here, and I've highlighted them so that you can easily spot them. When two simple molecules combine together to form a complex molecule with the removal of a water molecule, this is called a condensation reaction. When a complex molecule is broken down due to the addition of water molecule, basically it's the water molecule that's breaking the complex molecule down, right? The water is doing the work to break it down. This is called hydrolysis. Now, I'm sure if you've done IGCSEs, know levels, or may have some knowledge about hydrolysis, or if not, I'll explain it now. Hydrolysis is a particular reaction that occurs at its greatest rate in our human bodies, like in digestion. The food we eat is broken down because of hydrolysis. It's water that's doing most of the work to break down our food with the help of some particular specific enzymes. We'll actually study about them. So I explained it earlier. Polymers are made from the condensation reaction. Here, polymers are made from condensation, and monomers can be made from hydrolysis. When I say monomers, to break down a polymer, you need to perform hydrolysis. Now you can just have a look at this diagram here I'm pointing at. This is condensation. Two simple molecules react, water removed. There you go, complex molecule. Hydrolysis, a complex molecule shown here in purple. Water is added. Look, two simpler molecules added. Very simple. If you just want to have a recap, just have a look at this diagram. More than enough. A second just to revise what these two are, because guys, condensation and hydrolysis is something you need to know, because they're going to come quite many times when we study about proteins, lipids, water, and carbohydrates. Let me just explain the structure of this chapter. We're going to start by studying about carbohydrates, then proteins, then lipids, and then proteins. And the last but not least, water. Now they have subparts, like under carbohydrates comes monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides, and they're absolutely different from what you've done in your O-levels and IGCSEs, right? There's a lot more detail, a lot of chemistry, organic chemistry, a lot of drawing and stuff. Now you need to know some examples of your monomers and polymers. This will come ahead again in the future. So amino acids form proteins. This is your monomer and your polymer. Monosaccharides are simple sugar units forming your polysaccharides. Again, monomer and polymer. Now guys, fatty acids are not monomers, but since we're talking about triglyceride, which we'll study by the way under lipids, so yes, you can consider fatty acid as a monomer and triglycerides as a polymer. However, never consider a lipid as a polymer. Only triglycerides comes under this category. Nucleotide is actually made from monosaccharide and some organic bases. Like organic bases is not a monomer, it's nothing. And these form your nucleic acid, or also called polynucleotides. You can also call a protein polypeptide, okay? Now, all polymers, like all of them are macromolecules, right? What do I mean by this? I'll explain it in a bit. So basically all of your polymers are macromolecules, means giant. To identify a polymer or a macromolecule, the word poly coming indicates that this is a polymer or a macromolecule. For instance, polypeptide, polymer. Polysaccharide, polymer, or just don't remember what was I saying just a minute ago. Polymer and macromolecules. Sorry for the delay. I think my mind just stopped for a bit of a minute right there. It happens. Okay, and polynucleotide is a polymer and a macromolecule. Okay, they may not necessarily use the word poly, like if they write protein, get the idea of talking about a polymer or nucleic acid, but just to stay up to the mark. Okay. Okay, now we're going to start with the very first biological molecule, that is your carbohydrates. Now these are made from the elements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But there's a problem. Your lipids are also made from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And the good thing about proteins is that they're composed of nitrogen, so there's this one factor that distinguishes it from your carbohydrates and lipids. But there is one way to identify your carbohydrates. The ratio of hydrogen to oxygen is always 2:1. Right, this is permanent. Basically, when you say carbohydrate, the hydrate means water, H2O, right? The H2O implies that the hydrogen to oxygen ratio is 2:1. Now let's talk about the uses of carbohydrates in general. They're actually a major source of respiration when broken down. And we have three major carbohydrates: monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides. Now, monosaccharides is that one particular form by which they are absorbed into our bodies, used, and they are also broken down for respiration. And we'll talk about that that is what our upcoming topic is: monosaccharides. They're the simplest form of the sugar units, and call them simple sugar units. And this is the form in which they're absorbed. When you eat anything that may contain carbohydrates, it's converted into monosaccharides that can easily pass through your cell surface membrane after having been broken down. Are broken down via respiration to produce energy. And these are sweet in taste and soluble in water. Okay? Now before we move on, this is some of the things you need to understand. Now this is a structural formula, and this is a ring structure of glucose, right? Glucose is a type of monosaccharide. We will be focusing mainly on glucose because it is your glucose that forms the building blocks of many other carbohydrates, including disaccharides and polysaccharides. Okay? So guys, the formula of glucose is, one second, yeah, C6, I'm sure you guys know this. If not, here you go. H12O6. Now this is the molecular formula. If you convert this into the empirical formula, the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen should be 2:1, right? But then again, I guess if you didn't study chemistry, then you might not know what a molecular formula is. However, the ratio remains 2:1 of hydrogen to oxygen upon simplifying it. 6 ones are 6, 6 twos are 12, 6 ones are 6, right? Just get that bit of the information. Right. So, basically what we've done is that we need to draw this into an open chain, a diagram, basically a structural formula, right? Basically, carbon has 4 bonds, right? This is for the people who might not, who may lack knowledge about chemistry. If you know this, you may skip the video and move up ahead to get to the main part, okay? If not, you're welcome to stay. Let's talk about something. So this is your carbon. Your carbon has 4 bonds. 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically 4 elements or 4 groups of elements can attach to carbon, not more than 4, not less than 4. For example, I'm going to attach nitrogen here. I might attach a compound here, maybe let's say CH3, like I said, groups of atoms. Maybe an OH group, which is a hydroxide, and anything. Let's put an R here. R means it can be anything, okay? Like anything. So this is an example. So basically, if you count here, this is where carbon has a double bond. 1, 2. Then this is the 3rd bond. It's the 4th bond. Now the valency is satisfied. We move to the next carbon. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we have 6 carbons, so we're gonna first draw our carbons in the straight chain. That's how it works in the structural formula. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 6th one is right here at the bottom. Okay, and then let's talk about the functional groups. Functional groups are a group of atoms that are responsible for a molecule's characteristics, both physical and chemical. Basically, they allow you to identify the type of that molecule. Like we have alkanes, we have alkenes. Like if you want to know the functional group of alkenes, it's carbon double bond. For alcohol, it's an OH group, and for your carboxylic acid, which will come up ahead in lipids, it's COOH, in which there's carbon has a double bond with O. We also have an aldehyde group, which is CHO. Okay, so let's identify the functional groups first that allow us to identify our glucose. Okay, guys. Now, I'm gonna grab this, I suppose. Yeah, much better. Okay. 1 second. Yeah. So this particular region here that you can see is your aldehyde group. Okay, aldehyde group basically means that it's CHO. This is the functional group of an aldehyde. The name is aldehyde. And remember, look at the part. The carbon forms a double bond with the oxygen, and that's one functional group. And then there are 5 other functional groups as well. They're the same. OH, which is found in alcohol, also found in carbohydrates. That's one OH here, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, right? So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 OH groups and 1 aldehyde group. These are your functional groups, so remember them. Okay, numbering of the carbon atoms. Let's talk about numbering. Okay, this will help you when drawing the ring structure. Numbering of your carbohydrates begins from where the functional groups are, but so the numbering starts from the functional group, but the problem is there are 5 functional groups along with the aldehyde group. So we're gonna leave out the OH group because there are 5, and we're gonna consider our main functional group, the aldehyde part. So numbering starts from the aldehyde group. So the numbering is done on the carbon atom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So there are basically 6 carbon atoms, as you can see here, right? And then you can write, this is your then you need to fill out the relevant elements, like 6 oxygen here, so that's we need to have 6 oxygens that you need to attach with the carbon. That's 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you have about 12 hydrogen atoms. So you can fill them out as well with the relevant carbon atoms. Note that you can also fill them up with oxygen, right? You have to, because automatically you'll have to. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now this particular part here, you can also further open it up, but to save space, that's how we are going to write it down. Okay, so now how is the ring structure of a glucose form? Now this is simple. Imagine this. So the oxygen, okay, let me first rub this out first. Now I'm sure many of you must have been familiar with this particular structure, but this must be a bit new for some people maybe. So here's what happens. Okay, so do you see that 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is carbon number 5, and this is the oxygen here. So this oxygen here comes here, right? Basically, we have 6 carbon atoms. So since there's 6 carbon atoms, we're going to draw a hexagon, right? A hexagon has 6 sides. Each corner here of the hexagon represents a carbon atom. So this is carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number 4, carbon number 5, carbon number 6. The 6th carbon is always out of this ring structure, and the oxygen of the 5th carbon comes here. So remember this, and then you can just put the relevant OH group and H group, and then you have the ring structure. It's not that difficult, okay? So just practice this up, like how to draw this up and stuff, and then you should be good to go. And then we're gonna move on with what's next. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some types of monosaccharides. The most common ones are glucose, which we just spoke about the structure of, galactose, which is found in milk, fructose, which is found in plants, ribose and deoxyribose must be new. Ribose is a monosaccharide that forms your ATP and RNA, and deoxyribose is found in your DNA. Now there are different chemical forms of the same molecules, and they are referred to as isomers. Okay, so for example, when one particular compound has two different forms, basically, for example, carbon has two different forms, but they are the same. They're made from the same element, but physically they're different. They're allotropes, right? Diamond and your graphite. Similarly, two different chemical forms of the same molecule are called isomers. Glucose has two isomers, alpha and beta glucose, right? So they both are glucose, but they're two different chemical forms of glucose, right? So you must have to, in fact, draw them up. For 2 marks they ask you to draw an alpha glucose molecule, and for 2 marks they ask you to draw your beta glucose molecule. Okay, so there's a way to identify what is an alpha glucose molecule and a beta glucose molecule. Now it's quite simple. There's a trick to do this. I'll just explain it in a bit. Okay, so in an alpha glucose molecule, look at carbon number 1. This is carbon number 1. Remember the numbering. So the OH group on carbon number 1 is always down. Whenever it's down, this is an alpha glucose, and whenever on carbon number 1 it's up, you have a beta glucose. As simple as that, nothing more. So the next time they ask you to draw this, first draw the ring structure like normally, and just change the position of the OH group on carbon number 1. If it's up, it's beta. If it's down, it's alpha. That's it, nothing more. Do good practice of this, because this will come up ahead in other parts of carbohydrates. Okay, these are some of the ring structures of the monosaccharides: glucose, fructose, galactose. Now we've already covered glucose, so learn glucose. You don't need to do galactose, it's not part of the syllabus. However, you don't need to do fructose either. You don't need to learn how to draw fructose, but just understand like how you can identify it. Sometimes they may give you in the exam and you need to identify it, not galactose but fructose. Okay, so just understand that this is your fructose molecule, no need to draw it, so that you'll be able to identify them when coming in the exam. You're very good with glucose. Okay guys, that is it for today. We have completed about let's say 15% of the chapter, and I'll continue off. Now in the next part we're going to speak about your so we have completed monosaccharides. Now we are going to start with disaccharides. Yes, we are done with monosaccharides. That is it. It was a very small. Disaccharides and polysaccharides is up next. So we're gonna do all of that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and comment down below if you have any requests. And if you're watching this on my Facebook page, like, follow my page and react and comment down below. And most importantly, share this around with as many people as you can, because I'm spreading free and quality education. So without further ado, share this around and stay tuned for more exciting and awesome upcoming videos for absolutely free. As always, see you next week.